Greetings. Today we continue our consideration of the characters of the book of 3 John. We're looking at our first major point on that of the aged Apostle John. 3 John 2 literally says, "Beloved one, I'm praying myself concerning relationship to all things, you to be being prospered and to being enjoying good health, even as your particular soul, it is being prospered." Now we should note at once that this phraseology suggests that Gaius suffered from deficiency of his physical health, and yet he was still a faithful servant of God according to the truths which he had been taught. It's a very unique prayer request which Paul shares as his continuing prayer for Gaius, that his physical health might be as prosperous as his spiritual health. I suggest that this would be a very dangerous thing to ask God to do for the average Christian today, because many would be near death or dead from their neglect of the spiritual things in their lives if we match their physical health to their spiritual health. But Paul prays concerning this relationship of all things in Gaius' life. Paul uses the present passive infinitive to express the prosperity desired for Gaius, that God would cause a continual and repeated adding of blessings upon him for his labors for him. The comparative is joined by and continued by repeated action in present time. That is, that Gaius would have physical health equal to his spiritual health. 3 John 3 literally says, "I was caused to rejoice greatly for the brethren coming themselves and testifying of you to the truth, just as you yourself are walking around in truth." 3 John 3 declares the basis for John's request for Gaius, the testimony of others to John that Gaius was walking around in the truth himself. The structure of the verse means that John had gotten many reports from many different groups of traveling saints who had been helped along their way by Gaius. Verse 4 then says, "I am not having a greater rejoicing than these things, that I should be hearing my particular children are walking around in truth." So John states that he was rejoicing over this fact in verse 3 and returns to the thought in verse 4 to carry it up, as it were, to the superlative. I understand that at this point in the Greek language, this comparative was as close to a superlative as John could have used. John declares, "I'm not having, or I could not be having, a greater joy than that I have to hear that my children walk in truth." And again, we have the present tense used to stress the habitual action of the life. That is, Gaius habitually walks in truth, bringing habitual rejoicing to John's heart. Every new report about Gaius continuing would bring new rejoicing to John. 3 John 5, literal, "Beloved one, a faithful thing you are doing, if you should work yourself with respect to the brethren and respect to the foreign," or the stranger ones. 3 John 5 stands both as an encouragement and as a commendation. To the brethren has reference to fellow church members. The foreign ones have reference to traveling Christians who needed aid in their journeys. 3 John 6 literally says, "Who they testified your particular love in the presence of the church assembly, whom having sinned in a manner worthy of the God, you will do good." This verse further verifies the fact the testimonies had been given in John's presence in the church at Ephesus, how that Gaius had helped them to arrive there. The aorist active participle, to send forth, to send one on their way, referred to the sending of missionaries on their way, which involved providing things necessary for their journey, supplying them with food, money to pay for their expenses, washing their clothes, generally helping them to travel as comfortably and safely as possible.